The general presets in Apex suck. 4-3 linear, 5-3 classic, small dead zone, no dead zone. Overall, these combinations on their own are not bad at all. But for most people, presets don't hit the specific needs that they're looking for. That's because 99% of people are different in their own unique ways. Some people have more aggressive playstyles, which might need a specific kind of setting preset, and others more passive playstyles. Some people have specific physical limitations like stiffer thumbs, and others are just genetically gifted with insane control over their hands. So what are you supposed to do if these presets like 4-3 linear just don't feel good to you? This is where ALC settings comes in. ALC, otherwise known as advanced look controls in your controller settings, is a list of advanced settings which allows you to control how the game feels in an extreme in-depth way. For most people, it is way too complicated, and for other people, it's actually very overwhelming trying to tweak the ALC settings, which is why today I'm going to be breaking down every single setting, showing you how it affects your sensitivity, and I'll even teach you how to optimize your ALC settings to give you the absolute most control that you have ever had in Apex Legends. Today, I'm going to teach you how to tweak your sensitivity into aimbot-like aim. Let's get into it. All right, gang, as you can see, we're in the Apex Legends firing range, and today, I know I'm on a controller. I know that a while ago I said that I wouldn't be going back to controller, but today I am. So let's get into it. Now, we are going to be talking about ALC settings. As you already know, a lot of pros, when you ask them in their chat, hey, what should I play on? A lot of them will say, you know, play 4-3 linear. What is 4-3 linear? Or what is 4-3 classic? Or what is all these different things? Basically, what these pros are saying is they're telling you to just hop on the preset sensitivity that Apex makes for you guys, because it is a lot easier in general to just say play 4-3 linear than it is to play 2 response curve, you know, 200 extra yaw, 200 pitch, 100 yaw. It's a lot more complicated to give you the exact sauce in terms of ALC settings than it is to say, hey, go hop on a preset that Respawn made for you. So today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be getting rid of all of this here. We don't need any of this preset stuff because we are going to teach you how to play and how to adjust all of these settings here. We're going to start off here from top all the way down to bottom. We're going to go through every single setting and we're going to make it make perfect sense. After that, what we're going to do is we're going to help you understand how to adjust these settings and how it actually affects your controller and your in-game experience. Now, right here, as you can see, I have a controller display that shows you all of these stick inputs that I'm doing, so that way you can actually see what it would look like on your analog stick in-game as you are controlling recoil, as you are tracking and moving everything around. So let's start off here with dead zone. What is dead zone? How does it affect your game, and what roughly should you be playing with depending on the play style or the needs or wants that you may have? So dead zone is basically how far do you need to pull your stick before it starts to register in game. Now, to get the absolute most out of your dead zone, outer threshold, and response curve, you are seriously going to need a pro controller. You already know I'm a major advocate for paddles on controllers to help with movement and other functions, but controller technology has recently upgraded a lot, and nobody knows about it. Newer controllers, especially the custom controllers like the ones over at AIM and Get a Grip Gaming, now have tunneling magneto-resistant sticks, or TMR for short, which is the best that money can buy. And it's relatively inexpensive upgrade as well. TMR sticks use magnets like Holofeg, but are significantly more accurate at reading your movements, have a smoother resistance profiles for way better accuracy, last a lot longer, and are significantly less prone to stick drift. So if you want the absolute best aim possible, I'd seriously consider switching to a custom controller with TMR sticks. And if that does interest you, I'll leave a link in the description down below to my 2 favorite custom controllers that I use personally whenever I do hop on to controller. Basically what this means is that the higher your dead zone is, the more that you will need to move your stick before it registers. And the lower your dead zone is, the less that you will need to move your stick before it registers in game. This has nothing to do with your sensitivity. This has everything to do with how much do you need to move your stick before it actually activates. Now, this might seem very basic as it is, but there's a lot more that goes into dead zone. Dead zone isn't just how much do you need to move your stick before it works. Dead zone is also how much control, or roughly how much leverage in range of motion do you have over your analog stick before it moves, or roughly, or rather actually just in general, how much range of motion do you have over your stick in general. So a cool way to think of this, or a cool way to even look at this, is by looking over here at this circle graph. This circle, or rather this exterior circle, is where the end of your analog stick movements are. Once you reach the end over here, you can't pull your stick anymore. So as you can see, as we start to increase our dead zone, you can see that this blue circle here starts to grow. This circle means that we need to pull our stick roughly to this area before it starts to activate. Or another cool way to think of it, the way that I like to coach people to think about dead zone, is that this is the amount of range that you've lost. And this here is the amount of range of motion that you have left out of your analog stick. If we're playing max dead zone, you have lost 50% of the dead zone, or rather 50% of the range of motion that you have out of your analog stick. Now, by default, all of these gray lines that you see, these are the default lines that you get out of the preset classes made. So for instance, look dead zone small. That would be the default dead zone that you would be playing with. The default dead zone for small is 15%. You look at this graph here, you lost 15% of your range of motion out of your analog stick. Now, what does this look like on your actual controller? Right now, you can kind of see I'm moving my stick around, and it's not really making any movements, right? Very, very small, if at that. And now as soon as I start pulling my stick a little bit more, it starts to register. Now, this might not look like a massive thing at all. And in general, it doesn't really even feel that crazy or that massive. It actually, kind of feels, well, I just jumped by accident because I'm not used to controller. It actually kind of feels like somewhat normal also, right? It does not feel bad whatsoever, even though I'm like super rusty on controller. Not bad at all. But here's the issue with dead zone. Thinking of things like recoil control, tracking, having to switch directions across your screen, dead zone is a very important factor, because dead zone means that you are going to have to go back and past the dead zone that you created. So when we start thinking of something like a 15% dead zone, or a small dead zone at that, when I am moving my stick from right and I need to come back to center, I need to go back to 0, and then I need to push through the dead zone that I created for my stick to start registering again. This basically means that if I am going to be tracking someone over here and he changes directions, I'm going to have to go from movement, no movement, no movement, and then push through the dead zone I created. This is why controller in general feels really clunky and really awkward, because there are moments where your controller just does not move at all, and that is because you're dead zone. So ideally, what we're going to want to do with dead zone is you want to get this as low as possible that your controller can handle. And then once you realize how low you can go on your dead zone, then you're going to want to increase it or decrease it to whatever is controllable for you. So for instance, on this controller here, the way that we're going to find what dead zone is good for us, you're going to start off on 0. You're going to take your analog stick and you're going to do 360s with it. And as you're doing 360s, you're going to let go and you're going to see, does my stick drift when it snaps back to center? When I let my stick snap back to center, is it drifting? Right now it's drifting. So I know that on this dead zone, I'm going to have stick drift. Now, is stick drift awful? No, a lot of pros play with stick drift. Even I played with stick drift when I was playing on controller. Stick drift just means that it's instantly going to register no matter what. What we can do is we can either decide, you know what, I actually don't mind playing with stick drift. It's actually still very controllable and actually have, good response out of my stick. I like this. If you don't like the feeling of stick drift, that's fine. If you don't want to have to fight it, even though it's very marginally small, that's fine. You can increase your dead zone slightly. Rinse and repeat this step. Bring your stick, snap it all the way out to the edge, let go, come back. Are you drifting? You're not. All right. You can play on that dead zone. That's a dead zone that is good for your controller. Now you're going to want to do this going left, going right, going up, and going down, and you're going to want to make sure that you don't have any drift in this area if no drift is something that you're looking for. Now, the second part to figuring out what dead zone that you should kind of be playing on, or what in general is kind of roughly good for you, is going to simply be, do you have controls over your thumbs? Now, for someone like me who maybe has really small hands, you can see something like a Razer Viper V3, right? This is not necessarily a large mouse. This is kind of like a medium-sized mouse. You can see that I've got very tiny, short thumbs. Look at my hands on a PlayStation controller here. I've got very short thumbs. I actually have to shift my hand upward so that I can play with the stick a little bit more comfortably. So if you're someone who maybe doesn't have a lot of control over your thumbs or over your analog stick, you might want to increase your dead zone to something like a 2 to a 3, 4, maybe even a 5% dead zone, so that it just doesn't shake or feel as stiff or just in general be a little uncomfortable. Now, typically what I would suggest is the lower the better. It's going to give you more control. You're going to find that recoil control, something that happens the moment you pull your stick, is in general going to be a lot easier to do. Doing things like flicking is going to be a lot easier to flick, although it's going to be harder to stop because you have to let your thumbstick come closer to that 0 mark. But also tracking, changing direction, all of those things become increasingly easier with a lower dead zone. Now, outer threshold, what is this? Outer threshold is actually the complete opposite of dead zone. So as we start increasing and decreasing our outer threshold, you can see that this orange line starts to move. Like I said, this is the opposite of dead zone. Dead zone being how far do you have to pull your stick before you've started to move your stick. Outer threshold was how far do you need to pull your stick before it stops registering, because you're now at the quote-unquote maximum distance that you can pull. You're basically pushing the maximum speed that you can reach closer and closer and closer to the start of your pulse. Just like dead zone, you can increase this to lower your range of motion, or you can increase this to pull your stick further before it activates. You can adjust your outer threshold and increase it so that you don't have to pull your stick as far, so that it actually accelerates a lot quicker. You can think of it like this. If you're pushing your foot on a gas pedal, the gas pedal starts right here, right? This is, you're not going anywhere. This is 0 all the way to the floor. That's 100%, right? You can start your gas pedal, or rather you can adjust your gas pedal so that instead of pushing it all the way to the floor to get 100% speed out of your car, you actually only have to push it about 3/4 of the way. So now instead of going from here all the way to here to go 100%, you're now only going here to here. That's what outer threshold is. Now, why would you actually want to change this? There's a whole bunch of different reasons why you might want to change this. There's so many different ways that you can use outer threshold to actually change how other settings in the game interact with each other, which is a really cool thing. This is something a lot of people don't talk about, which is why a lot of people tend to fuck their settings up, because they don't understand outer threshold. Now, with outer threshold, as much as this affects how far you can pull your stick before everything comes to a stop or everything comes to a maximum, it's also going to affect how fast you get there. If we look at this blue graph right here, this is your acceleration. This is you haven't pulled your stick at all. And then as you pull your stick, your sensitivity ramps up and goes faster and faster and faster all the way to the end, the maximum. We can see right here, I'm just going to lower the response curve. You can see right here with my acceleration, it goes at a clean 45-degree angle. As I start to increase my outer threshold, not only do you start to lower the range of motion that you have, I've lost 26% of my range of motion, but I've also increased how far, or rather I've decreased how far I need to pull my stick. You can see that the maximum that I have to pull just went from all the way over here to all the way over here. And because of that, how quickly my thumbstick will accelerate becomes increasingly sooner, which obviously you would expect to make sense. Now, this makes a lot of sense when you're looking at it on a straight line, when you have a 0 response curve. We'll talk about response curve a little bit in more detail later in this video. But let's just say I play on classic response curve and I have a 0 outer threshold or a 1 outer threshold. You can see at the beginning of my acceleration, the very beginning of my pulls with my thumbstick, I get very little acceleration out of my analog stick. We'll show you here on screen. I move my analog stick a little bit at the very beginning. I get very little interaction with my stick in the game. But what happens when I increase my outer threshold? You can see right here, I have some acceleration in these small, almost medium-sized pulls. But as soon as I increase my acceleration, you can now see I'm getting a lot more acceleration inside of those beginning pulls. It really likes to affect the beginning and the ends of your movements. A way that you can use outer threshold, there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can use it. Number one, for whatever reason, if you wanted to do this, you could use outer threshold. Oh, actually, let me just push my outer threshold all the way back to the max. We'll turn on our gamepad display. And now you can see when I move my analog stick just a little bit, it moves a lot more than it was before. So this is like a very small circle that I'm making with my analog stick. We go back into our settings, lower that all the way back, do the same thing, a lot smaller. So you can almost use outer threshold to make your thumbstick a little bit faster or a little bit more sensitive to some degree. Now, there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can actually use outer threshold. You can use it to decrease how much range of motion you have, or increase how much range of motion you have. You can use your outer threshold to push how fast your analog stick responds a little bit further, or rather push it forward so that it reaches the maximum faster, if that's something that you want, or you can pull your outer threshold back so that it doesn't reach the maximum as fast, and almost like it slows everything down a little bit while still keeping the maximum speed that you can reach. So you can use outer threshold to essentially change a lot of things. Now, this will make more sense when we talk about response curve. Your response curve is only going to affect this blue graph right here, your acceleration. The response curve means how fast will your thumbstick accelerate. For every millimeter that you pull your thumbstick, how much extra speed is going to be added to your in-game experience. So let's start off with linear, because this makes the most sense, and then we'll increase our way to classic and some other sensitivities. So on linear, 0, or what some people call raw input. Your input, your acceleration, will increase by 1 mark every single millimeter. This is like a hypothetical that I'm just giving, like a hypothetical number here. It will increase by 1 every millimeter that you pull your stick. So right here, I pull my stick, my speed increases +1. I pull my stick another millimeter, it increases +1. Now I'm at 2. Pull my stick another millimeter, increases +1. Now I'm moving at 3 speed, +1, +1, +1, +1, +1, and it gives you this linear growth in your acceleration. Now, as I increase my response curve, you can see that it flattens out the beginning, curves the middle, and flattens out the ends. You can almost think of it as you're pushing the middle into itself. The beginning parts of your pulls become a lot smoother, a lot slower, a lot easier to manage. The middle parts are also a lot slower, but because of that, because it still needs to reach the maximum speed, which is your yaw and your pitch speed here, it has to crank up towards the end. So as we start pushing the middle in, you can see that the beginning pulls here, those smaller to medium movements, becomes almost nothing. That end movement has been pushed all the way down, and now at the very end, it has to parabolic spike all the way to 100% acceleration. So response curve basically means how responsive, how twitchy, how sensitive is your settings. How sensitive is your thumbstick? When I put my response curve on linear and I move my thumbstick a little bit, you can see that I get a lot of input out of my thumbstick. Right? I'm basically making those smaller movements input a lot more. As you can see right here, those smaller movements are becoming registered at the very beginning. They increase my response curve. Those smaller movements have been flattened out. They're a lot stiffer now. Those medium movements are also flattened out. They're pushed further back. And those larger movements, you can kind of see it goes small, nothing's really happening. Mediums, nothing's still really happening. Large, and then it just kind of kicks up. So nothing's happening, ramps up. Nothing's happening, ramps up. So in terms of response curve, what would you change and why would you change this? For response curve, we want to make sure that we have something in mind. If you want your smaller movements to be more pronounced, you're going to have a smaller response curve. If you want your smaller movements to be a little bit flatter, to be a little bit more mute, you're going to increase this a little bit. Something to keep in mind: recoil, changing direction, licking, tracking, anything that involves movement starts the moment that you pull your stick. So things like recoil control, where you want to have very aggressive movements because changing direction in recoil can happen really quick. If I shoot the ground, you can see that there are moments where the bullets go right, change left, go back right, change left, right, back up to the left. There's lots of movements where you have to pull your stick right. There's lots of movements where you're going to have to control recoil by going right, left, right, left, left, right, left, left. Significantly more, because you have a higher response curve, you're going to notice that things like recoil control become more difficult because you have to pull more. Also keep in mind, if you have a low response curve, you're going to feel your low dead zone that much more. Now, we're going to skip our optics. We're going to go into yaw and pitch speed. Yaw and pitch, all this means is your left movements. Yaw is your left and right movements, your horizontal movements. Pitch speed is your vertical movements, your up and down. Now, what a lot of people tend to get mixed up is that yaw and pitch, your left and your right sensitivity, is your sensitivity. We don't want to think of yaw and pitch as sensitive. We want to think of yaw and pitch as speed, the maximum that you can reach. So when we start thinking about how do I want my sensitivity to feel, what we're really trying to think to ourselves is, what is the fastest that I want to be able to turn? Now, let's talk about extra yaw and pitch. An extra yaw and pitch is an extra amount of speed that you will get once you reach that outer threshold mark. So once I pull my aim to this orange line, to the maximum outer threshold, then the extra yaw and pitch will kick in. Let's just say I play on like 180 and 170. If I play with an extra 250, well, right now I will have what feels like that 180 speed. And then when I bring my stick out to the edge, boom, I will instantly get all of that extra speed. So right now I'm moving my stick, and then once I reach the outer threshold, boom, instant extra speed. So where a lot of people tend to go wrong is they rank their speed all the way to the maximum, because, well, they want to be able to hit really fast 180s, 360s. They want to be able to flick really hard off to the side. But the issue with this is because they turned their speed all the way up, those really small movements that they make are insanely fast, or those medium movements that they make are too fast for them. The big movements are exactly where they want them to be. So instead, what we can do with the ALC extra yaw is we will reduce our yaw speed to something that is more comfortable for us. 170 is a fairly good spot for most people. I'll take my extra yaw and I'll crank this up instead. So now all of my smaller movements feel a lot more controlled. And then whenever I need to hit a really big flick, that extra yaw will kick in, boom, and give me all that extra speed. Now, pitch, like I said, is just that up and down. Extra pitch is just extra speed going up and down. So it's the exact same thing as yaw, except in a different direction. Ramp up time and ramp up delay. These are two different settings here, and they both affect your extra yaw and your extra pitch. Ramp up time is how long does it take to reach the maximum extra yaw. You can think of ramp up time as your outer threshold, but instead of a mechanical value, meaning how far do you need to pull your stick before it activates, you can think of it as a timed value. How long do you need to pull your stick before it reaches the maximum that you're looking for? If I play with ramp up time on 0, the millisecond, the instant that I bring my stick out to the edge, it will just kick in automatically. Instantly, like that. I'm going at a medium speed right here, and then all of a sudden, boom, all of it kicks in. Now, if I go back to my settings and I increase the ramp up time, let's just go 35, which is the default. As I'm turning my stick, I reach the maximum. And you can see it wasn't instant. I still went the full speed, but it slowly ramped up and then it went whoom. So by increasing your ramp up time, you can make it so that all of that extra speed slowly gets added as you hold your stick longer and longer and longer on the edge, on the outer threshold. Now, I would not recommend ever playing with that. I would recommend playing with your ramp up time on a fairly low setting. The reason why for this is because if you were to play with this on, let's just say 35, and I need to make a quick flick to go behind, I want that speed now. I don't want it to ramp up. I want to hit the flick and be where I'm looking right now. So I would decrease this to 0. Here's the issue with 0. Now, when I'm fighting someone and he takes a step to the right, and I want to flick over to that. When I flick my stick off to the side, all of that speed instantly goes to my controller, which means that instead of hitting a flick at this range at, let's just say, 170 speed, right, which is what I'm currently playing. Oh, I was actually playing 250, right? And so instead of my stick hitting 250 speed and flicking on over to the side really quick, instead, I'm actually flicking at 500 speed at this close range. So instead, what I would do, I would consider increasing the ramp up time slightly. Anywhere from a 5 with 15% is pretty much that sweet spot. Because now, if I need to flick over, I'm still going to get extra speed, but I'm not going to get all of it all at once. Now, your delay is very similar to ramp up time. Ramp up time is how long does it take for it to reach the maximum. 0, +1, +3, +5, +10, plus whatever. Now you're finally at that 250 extra yaw that you put into your settings. Delay is how long does it take before the ramp up time begins, or how long does it take for your extra yaw to even start being added to your controller. So for instance, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to turn my speed all the way down, and I'm going to keep my extra pitch and yaw all the way maxed out. So hypothetically, I will have 0 input from my controller until I reach the maximum, and then I will be instantly moving at 250 speed. But the delay keeps it from being added until you reach that percentage mark. So if I play on 0, I shouldn't get any movement or very little movement until I reach the maximum. So no movement, reach the maximum, it kicks in. No movement, reach the maximum, kicks in. No movement, reach the maximum, kicks in. Now if I play and I increase my delay, no movement, reach the maximum, doesn't kick in at all. Or very, very long does it take to kick in, because there's a delay keeping it from kicking in right away, or keeping it from kicking in at all. Something that I would suggest is never playing with ramp up delay. I would always play with this off, and then if you want to tweak how long does it take for you to get all of that speed, then you can increase this. Now, your ADS speed, ADS pitch, all of these ADS things, these are the exact same thing as everything that we just talked about up here. The only difference is that it's ADS, which means aiming down sight, which basically just means that you are looking down the sight of your gun. So we don't need to cover any of this because it's literally everything that we just talked about. Now, your target compensation. This is super basic. We don't really need to spend all that much time on it. This is just your aim assist. The only thing that you need to know that you actually may want to change and that you actually should change is your melee target compensation. Your melee target compensation is your aim assist when meleeing. Now, you might be asking, why would I not want to have aim assist when I'm punching? Don't I want to lock on to a target? Obviously you do, but here's what you need to understand. The lock-on effect is not aim assist. This is just the game's way to make sure that you connect a shot with a melee on someone that's in front of you. That way, when you melee, they don't like step off to the side and you miss them. Right now, I'm not even looking at this person, and it melees him anyways. It locks onto him still. A lot of times he'll try to turn away, and the aim assist will keep you stuck on your opponent. That's a big issue for a lot of controller players, especially people who are trying to practice movement. So when we holster the weapon to give ourselves more movement speed out of our legend, if you leave your aim assist for melees turned on, this just means when you're trying to melee, when your gun's not in your hand, it will still snag onto the people that you're looking at. So now that my goal right now is not to fight this person, but instead it's to leave the fight, by turning off your melee target compensation, there's no more aim assist here. When I try to turn away from him and get back into cover and take out my gun, I won't be slowed trying to turn away from my opponent. Now, your per optics, this is super basic. This is just how sensitive is your optic based off of the one that you're using. So if you're using the 1x scope, how fast is it moving for the 1x, for the 2, the 3, the 4x? If you turn off your per optic sensitivity, it will just give you the default presets no matter what. So if I turn on the presets here, you can see that the default preset is set to 1 for all of these. So if you don't want to play with the default, then you would turn this on and you would increase these. I like to play with all of these nudged up by 1 click. That's what's really fine for me personally. This is what I like to play on when I was playing on controller. So yeah, that is how you would tweak your sensitivity and how you would basically, you know, change things depending on what you are looking to get out of your sensitivity. So if you found this video very helpful, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and make sure to check out this video right here, which actually is all of the presets that I've made for you inside of ALC settings. We have over 5 different settings that you can try, each one with a very specific style on aiming and a very specific preference in how you want your analog stick to feel when you are aiming. So if that interests you and you play on controller and you want to find a good ALC, or if you want to just find a starter ground, now that you understand everything about ALCs, go try out one of my presets and then tweak those presets based off of what you want out of your settings. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, hit that like button and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Later, guys.